today we have a special feature. I'm going to bring up Brian Klock.
Really, the catch for me as far as the custom stuff was I was 17 years old. I was in the Black Hills in Sturgis, South Dakota. And of course, my mom and dad wouldn't let me go to Sturgis. I had to go the week before because all the trouble came the week of, you know. And I've been out there since I was 8 years old. Last year was my 35th year being at Sturgis. And 17 years old, I pull up on this Honda, and we pull up outside this little bar, and we're going to go in there and get a Coke at the end of Spearfish Canyon. And here's these 3 killer bikes. The cafe style, the low laid down bikes, gold leaf, blower, all this stuff. And I'm like, wow, now, if I could own a Harley like that, I would own one. That is the deal. I will someday, I'm going to have one of those bikes. It was all a mess. I had no idea. He came out, he had a t-shirt tucked up in that little windshield, that little cafe fairing, and they get on their bikes and ride away, and I was like awestruck, you know? So fast forward 5 years later, and I'm building my first FXR.
Well, you know, that's a pretty impressive story in itself. You couldn't be more impressed than Arlen Ness, you know, really the king of custom. So you were impressed, you know, this is what I tell people, to go out, go to the shows, do some research, and try to figure out what style of bike you like. So obviously you like that style, you came across the FXR, which is probably the best handling Harley out there. How did you proceed in that first project, and what led you along? How did you get your ideas and the direction you wanted to go into?
I went to every one of these shows, and I crawled around on my hands and knees under all these bikes that you see in the aisleway. For these guys to put on this kind of a custom show here for you is amazing. I don't care if you're into Hayabusas, if you're into the Super Motard, or if you're into a single cylinder custom frame bike over there, or if you're into the bobber style or even choppers. You've got to study it and study it and study it. This one little piece might fit your bike, this one little piece might fit your plan, but you've got to get it right from axle to axle. And really, that's what it's about for me. I'm a freak. My wife will tell you we have a basement full of magazines. I watch every video. I watch all the stuff. And yesterday, I'm walking around here, and guys came up and said, "Aren't you Brian Klock?" They just replayed the Discovery Channel build-off where your wife raced that bike, and it was just on yesterday morning. Well, that was 4 years ago, you know? So some things change and some things stay the same, and I'm very thankful for that.
You know, one of the things I try to portray to people when they up-and-coming builders is to do a lot of research. So, you know, you're right on the money there, Brian. Still, come to the show, look and call around, check out the bikes, pick out the style you want. Check the internet. It's just invaluable information in terms of frame configuration, grade, what you want to do. And talk to builders like Brian. When you come to these shows, we make a special effort to have all the builders around their bike. The builder community is such a tremendous community. They really want to help foster new builders coming in. And I'm sure there's not a question that you couldn't ask Brian about building a bike and what it takes, and he'll point you in the right direction. So really spend that time on research. So then once you have that concept together, you can start getting the parts. Now, we're going to talk to Brian a little bit about where you go to get parts and what to do. But the one thing to remember, and I'm sure he'll concur with this, is don't paint anything right away, you know?
The first custom bike I ever did, I took my FXR frame in my mom's car because the trunk was big enough to hold my frame. I drove up to Minneapolis, and I went to Donnie Smith's house. He was raking my frame in the garage behind his house. The one thing Donnie Smith told me is put it all together, wire it, and ride it before you do anything else. Just what he just told you. Don't paint it first, okay? Put it together, ride it, make sure you go beat the crap out of it. I took it to Sturgis 2 years in a row with a hard hat and a hammer on the back, and it said under construction, because I got sick of answering people's questions, okay? And it was primer gray, but it was under construction. It's like, this is all I got, okay? I put everything I have into this bike. They didn't have the internet. You didn't have a way to get all that stuff. Now you get so much information, but you can almost get too much information. So really what you need to do is buy the right parts and assemble them piece by piece.
Now, I think Brian brings up a very important part there to the construction process. And that's doing what you like and assembling it. But if it doesn't fit right, you know, and you don't need to have a 5-axis CNC machine at your house to do it. I built a lot of things with a hand grinder and die grinder and a press at the house, and you You just take your time and fit it. If it doesn't come out right the first time, don't worry about it. You can do it again. There is no time limit. At this point, you got your bike together. It's all mocked up, no runs. You pretty much got everything figured out. You don't have to worry about destroying paint or adding a bracket. A lot of times you forget something, you have to add another bracket. Or take a bracket off. Yeah. So now you're getting ready for the paint. Take your time on the paint too. Talk to different people. Go to professional painters. Now you can do a nice, okay, and Brian has a great story for it. You can do a nice rattle can job, or you can go and spend $10,000 on a paint job. But take your time so that you know that your paint is going to reflect the style you want. So I bet Brian has a pretty interesting story, so let's hear what he has to say.
It's 1993, I just finished off that FXR, right? I'm gonna paint it. I go out and pick out this car color, and I painted that color, and I take it to Sturgis, and I finished like third in the show, and I won this other one in Kansas. I'm wanting to see Arlen Ness's bike, and I'd broken my leg, okay? So I had my crutch stuck on the back of my bike, had my leg stuck out here. I built this crazy peg because I'm just using my front brake to stop, right? The Del Ordo carburetor's sitting there. I've got a cast right up to here, okay? I'm riding up there. I get up to Arlen's hotel, and he knocks on the window and tells me to wait. And I thought, man, I didn't want to disturb him. I just wanted to look at this bike. He comes out, he goes, oh, that was just Billy Gibbons from ZZ Top. He goes, he wants me to build a couple bikes. What'd you do to your leg, kid? And I'm like, what? You just hung up the phone with Billy Gibbons to talk to me, some kid from South Dakota? I said, while you're out here, I told him what happened. It was a jet skiing accident and all this stuff. And I said, you know, what else could I do to my bike? About that time, this guy from Italy rode up that owned one of Arlen's bikes, and he goes, is that your bike? He said, no, this kid right here built it. And I said, well, you know, Arlen's gushing and saying he did a great job and this and that. And I'm still thinking, there's something about my bike that sucks, and I don't know what it is. And Arlen goes, you tell me what's the matter with this bike. I go, my paint job. He goes, yeah. He goes, that's car paint, isn't it? I said, yeah. He goes, you need to use something a little deeper, like candy, like House of Colors, this, that. And I'm like, I don't know if I can afford that. He says, I'll tell you what, you tear your bike down and send it to me, and I'll paint it for you for $1,500 bucks. $1,500. I'm thinking, he's crazy. That's a lot of money. I didn't pay the last guy $600 bucks, you know? Now I look back thinking I could have had my first ever custom bike painted by Arlen Ness for $1,500. I'm an idiot, you know? But really, he was so kind and so genuine, and don't be afraid to ask. Dave Perowitz is here, Bob's a plethora of knowledge, Jeff down here, there's tons of great builders. All these guys that are scattered out throughout here are standing by their bike, okay? Go ask them that question. They've probably been up against it. If they shine you off, that wasn't the guy that was going to help you out anyway. Go to the next guy. You'll find a guy who will help you. Donnie Smith, Arlen Ness, Bob, I'm happy to call all these guys my friends, and they've helped me out. I mean, I've been in this business 20 years. I'm standing over here just minutes ago at Corso Cycles. This guy's got a Street Glide that's got my windshield on it. Laura and I own the Klock Werks. We make these windshields. You think 20 years ago I would have thought when I was in a 700 square foot single car garage that someone would actually have my parts on their bike? I'm from Emory, South Dakota, graduating class, 13 kids, population 350 people. I've never been to New York City. I get in that cab and I'm thinking, this guy thinks my wife's crazy because she races at Bonneville. I think he's crazy because he drives right here. You know, this is nothing.
Mentioning your windshield is a pretty interesting deal because I know you started to develop those windshields when Laura was going to go for the land record at Bonneville. And here again, this racing history of racing and customization going together. You can't see an FLHX today without a clear windshield on it. It's really something else. So you've really done a great job of capturing style with functionality too. So I know we're starting to get out of time here, but you could just talk a little bit about your Bonneville experience and what we can see from Klock Werks in the future.
Absolutely. Laura, will you come up here real quick? Ladies and gentlemen, this is my wife, Laura. She is the land speed record holder on the world's fastest bagger 3 years in a row. And we built a bike for Discovery Channel, like I said, 4 years ago, okay? The next week, we were at Drake Specialties. We presented 37 parts, scared to death. Okay, the next thing we did is 1 week later, we went out to the Bonneville Salt Flats, and I told my wife that bike will only go about 125, go 80 or go 100. Okay, I'm going to give you the real quick best part of the story for me. Okay, I tell her just go out there and go 80. Just prove that we didn't build a show queen for Bonneville. Okay, just prove that it will run down there. We've never been here. Okay. She takes off, it goes first gear, second gear, third gear, fourth gear, the thing's revving up. I'm standing there with Carly, my stepdaughter, she's 11, okay? Erica's 15 and she wants to go watch mom at mile 3, go by at top speed, okay? There's about 4 other teams, and at Bonneville, it's like 30,000 acres of salt, just this big barren land. She's ripping down there, fourth gear hits, and there's this little dot on the horizon, and she's really doing good, right? And I'm thinking, that's my girl. She's taking it easy. She's going through the gears, and all of a sudden the bike goes, whap! And all these guys look at me and they go, she blew it up. Dan, my first ever employee, been with me 15 years. He looks at me and goes, she's going for it. I said, I know. That was probably the longest 30 seconds of my entire world. I'd never been married, never had daughters, and I just sent her out there on that bike to go 100 some miles an hour, and she's not listening to me, okay? She is on the gas, and I hope I did everything I could do. She gets into the mile, they say the rider's in the measured mile, rider's exiting the mile, rider's cleared the course, rider's fine, everything's good, zero, go ahead and start your next rider. I go, Carly, get in the car, let's go. We just want to go back down there, right? And all these guys are going, dude, that's a beautiful bike. You have a beautiful wife. We want to know how fast she went. I said, I don't really care. I said, she's safe. That's all I care. Guy goes, can I call? I said, go ahead. Takes his walkie-talkie off and goes, can I get a speed on the 333? I said, absolutely. The speed on the 333 was 138.5 miles an hour. The old record was 138.1. She broke it by 0.4 of a mile an hour, and I told her, don't go faster than 125, okay? I go down there, she's back in line because you have to wait 2.5 hours to do it again. I tap her on the shoulder, she flips up the lid on her helmet, she goes, it's got more, honey, it's got more. I said, how much more do we need? How fast do you think you went? She goes, I don't know, maybe like 120. I go, 138.5, you think you can back that up? She goes, yeah, but I'm about out of fuel. So we go get fuel, they call out because you got to go from the other end and come back the other way. They go, I got Laura Ellison coming out there on the 333, she's got 45 minutes to make a return. She goes back the other way, this time I want to know, I tell the guy call in, he goes the 333, they said absolutely, 143.6. Cinderella had just come home from the ball. These little kids from South Dakota and from Wisconsin had not only built the WFB, the world famous bagger that won the Discovery Biker Build-Off, they now have built the WFB, the world's fastest bagger. And that changed our lives. All of a sudden, people in Germany know who we are, people in Russia know who we are. And we're still that kid who started in a single car garage from Emory, South Dakota, from the graduating class of 13. And like I said before, I've never been to New York City. So thank you, this is an amazing show. Thanks for having us, and you guys are so blessed to have this. You have no idea.
Thank you, Brian. How about a big round of applause for Brian and Laura. We could go on all night telling you guys stories, but we have to make time for the next presentation. So thank you all for coming.